When I was little, I loved when people would tell me stories about anything. Everything, history, epic, folklore, mysteries, I love all of them. And I grew up in a place with a lot of stories. I remember one about a woman who lived down the road from my mother's side of the family who would sleep outside in her car, in her driveway with all the windows and doors open. I was, of course, afraid of the man who people said had half a face. I guess a lot of places probably have a story like that one, but when I got older, I learned that things were not exactly as they seemed. It turns out that nuclear weapons were manufactured not too far away, making it much more reasonable that someone would be afraid of radiation poisoning and want to sleep outside. I met the man with half a face, and the reason was cancer. And he's super nice. That additional information changed the way I understood those stories. The story was the same, it was my understanding that was different. I had a new perspective. That's what I do now as a strategic advisor for program effectiveness in Washington, D.C. Listen to stories, see what more I can learn and understand about the context of those stories, and reveal unseen perspectives. I look at systems of interrelationship between activists and researchers, policymakers and politicians to identify patterns, find points of impact, and create theories of change. This big picture analysis is meant to reveal unseen perspectives. Last year, I started a master's degree in journalism innovation, and it gave me the opportunity to step behind a camera and capture one activist story for the first time. My perspective flipped from the systemic back to the personal. From this new vantage point, I have been using what I know about systems analysis to create tools that work for individual needs. So last year, I built an app using ProPublica's API to track global nutrition resolutions and statements moving through Congress. I made a chatbot for activists who find it easier to interact with than an online forum, and I've experimented with XR to figure out new ways for people to connect with one another when we can't travel to each other. Sometimes it can be hard to see how a complex system really boils down to an individual, or how any one individual can impact a system enough to change it. But it's the only thing that can. Every day, advocates and activists share their stories, listen to the stories of others, and use stories and what we learn from them to power real and lasting change. So from listening to stories about people in my West Texas home to Washington, D.C., where I help connect personal stories to systemic change, I guess I've come full circle. That's my story. I know you've got one. I hope you'll tell me.